This is Faith Talk.
Hey guys, tonight we are getting together as a team, and Zeke's back here behind the camera, hanging out with us.
Hey guys.
And we're shooting some stuff. The promo is coming out soon, and we're getting some images shot for that. Be looking for that real soon, guys. We're excited about what's going on with that, and get to see this year's theme promo coming out. But tonight, Zeke brought up an interesting point, and tonight we're going to talk about prayer. And if you've been on many of our videos, we talk about prayer.
Okay.
Generally, what?
How often do you pray?
How do I pray?
Yeah. Be honest.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Cool.
But that's part of that, now, honest moment, because part of that is I put my kids to bed every night. And one of the big parts of putting my kids to bed every night is my wife and I go back to their room with them. They share a room. And each of our children get to pick, we have 2 girls, gets to pick a song. You've been there for bedtime prayers.
It's cute.
So each of my girls gets to pick one song, and we sing that song, and then we say a prayer. Yes. We sing Soft Kitty off the Big Bang Theory.
Anyway.
Since they were babies. But we say a prayer. And actually it's been cool, because just like the last couple of weeks, so you haven't been there in a while, usually I say the prayer. But the last couple of weeks, my daughters have started saying the prayers.
Wow.
And Abby would do it every now and then, but my 3-year-old has been wanting to say the prayer.
Wow.
So the last week or two, my 3-year-old will say a prayer, which is really difficult because she starts out really strong, and she doesn't talk real clear. She'll start out really long and loud, and
Falls off.
she's so quiet like this. My wife is standing next to her, and I'm over by my other daughter's bed, and I'm looking at my wife like, is she still going? Because my oldest
20
daughter
minutes,
and I
man.
can't hear it. And then Abby will say a prayer, and then sometimes I say a prayer. So, but for the longest time, it's been my wife or I usually me saying the prayer at night. So that has actually gone a long way towards me praying more often. We also, one of the rules in my house, and if you have children, I recommend this. 90% of the time, not all the time, but 90% of the time, I make my kids come to the table for dinner. We turn off the television, we turn off everything else, and when everybody sits down, after I get my kids' plates made, make my plate, we sit down and we stop and have a prayer. And sometimes that's me praying, and sometimes that's one of my daughters praying. That we try to, my wife and I are trying to set an example and make a very conscientious effort to set that example of praying on a regular basis with them. So,
But what about you personally, without your kids around?
well, like I said, that I do a lot of praying in these situations, but I actually pray more often than I used to because I'm a dad now. I got to admit that's actually a big driver for me. Is I always have thought prayer is very important. I've always intentionally wanted to be active in my prayer life, but I haven't always gotten through with that. But since I've become a father, I've gotten more regular about my prayers because prayers never. I'm one of those people who my wife used to hate it when she got out of town. We used to live several states out in Missouri, and my wife's family lives back here. My wife loved to come home and see her family, but at the time we didn't have enough money for all of us to make a trip. It was just me and Sarah back then. And so my wife would be gone for a week and a half, and she knew I was eating like hot dogs and top ramen the entire week. I don't take care of myself real well when she's not around. I won't go through the effort to take care of myself. And it's the same way I was about prayer for a long time. I don't pray for me or about me, but I spend a lot more time praying about my kids now and praying about my wife and what's going on in our lives. So my prayer life has increased much more. What was the national average we heard?
Like twice a week.
Twice a week, was that the guy said?
Yep.
So Zeke heard a guy, and he gave some statistics on the average amount of prayer that a claiming believer does in a week is about twice a week. Which, that's horrible, guys. If we're going to be Christians, if we're going to be about serving God, we got to pray more than that. But apparently that's the statistic. What about you?
I find myself praying every day. I don't find myself praying for myself as much as I probably ought. I pray for our youth group. I pray for the youth rally, obviously. I pray for things going on in people's lives. I pray for my dad. recently about prayer is we spend a lot of time talking to God and not enough time talking with God. And what it kind of comes down, this is things I've been thinking about and praying about the last several weeks, is it's a lot like the relationship. We talk about the relationship with Christ. And it's a lot like a relationship with your significant other to an extent. If you had a girlfriend, and if it's a guy, you have a girlfriend, and you never talk to her, how long would your relationship last? Probably wouldn't last very long. Okay? I look at the same kind of, this is kind of a weird analogy, but the same kind of context with my relationship with Christ. If I never spend any time in communication, my relationship's going to falter. And not on his end, because he's given everything, but on my end, because I'm not spending enough effort talking with God. If that makes sense.
What's it?
So, question from behind the camera.
If you keep it up, I'm going to make you sit up here, man.
No, you're good. Go ahead, bud.
So, when a friend comes to either one of you,
Come to the side so you get the microphone.
when a friend comes to either one of you and unloads their burdens, do you say, I will pray for you, and let that friend walk away? Or do you stop right there and say, let's pray?
See, he's Mrs. Collins' director.
It depends on the person.
Depends on the person.
I gotta admit, I've been really guilty about the I'll pray for you thing.
For me, if the person is a believer, I'll ask if we can pray. If the person's not a believer, sometimes I'll say, I'll pray for you. Or I'll ask them if we can pray together, depending on who they are, what the situation is. Because it may just, if you say, I'll pray for you, they're like, dude, whatever. Or they may go, dude, that's totally cool. I really appreciate that. It just depends on the person, the place, and the situation.
But that becomes a really kind of difficult situation too. Because, for example, I'm not a touchy-feely buddy person. Normally.
Battle!
Yeah. So, most of you guys who are actually watching this have been to ACP, right? We've all seen how Dave reacts
What?
when people are like, hey, everybody give Dave a hug. And Dave runs away, right?
I don't run away, I stand my ground, son.
No,
Anyway.
right? Because I like my space. I'm not a share my feelings. Well, no, I mean, but it's a reality, right? So my friend I go to church with is a Marine, our former Marine, and he's a police officer. He's a big dude too, right? And he's a really cool guy. But like he came to church the other day and sat down next to me and my wife, and we were up singing, and he walked over and we did the guy hug thing, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh,
Walked over
yeah.
and did this thing. But it was awkward. You could see the pause because we kind of caught hands and there was a momentary pause. So we both realized, we're going, why? I mean, how are we doing? Because neither of us we enjoy each other, we're buddies, but neither of us are that very touch person. And so, like, when I started working with these guys on ACP, we were out and we do some of our meetings here. Right now we're filming at King's Orchard Church of Christ in the youth room. David and I have filmed in his office down the hallway. And we get together, and Zeke and David and I would all sit down for meetings, and we always start ACP meetings with prayers. And we always end them with prayers, because it's very important to all of us that God is the focal, that this is about God and about God's kingdom, not about us. And we know we need the help. So that's a very important part of our meetings to us. But sometimes we meet down like, what is that? Pybus Market. So we have like this public market thing here in Wenatchee. It's kind of a cheap version of Pike Place Market in Seattle. But
I like it.
to me, it's a very uncomfortable place because I don't like big public open places. But that's fine. I can go eat and meet there. But the first time we met there and had dinner, three of us stopping to pray in the middle of this restaurant in this very open market became a very uncomfortable moment for me. Not because I'm embarrassed to pray, but because to me prayer is very intimate. And so it made me, it's like the way I feel very, like the armor is off at that moment. I feel very vulnerable in that position. because to really open yourself up and pray and talk to God, you have to open yourself up. You have to become vulnerable. You have to open up your heart. And for me, that makes me feel very vulnerable to everything else. So it's kind of when you ask me to pray, it's like, hey, can I pray for you? The preacher of my congregation, we were out having lunch one day, and I was getting ready to leave for a month-long trip. And he's like, well, hey, can I pray for you? And he reaches over and puts his hand on my shoulder and starts praying for me at this little restaurant that, like, the owner's a friend of mine, everybody knows me. And it was very uncomfortable to me. Not because I'm embarrassed to pray, because I feel vulnerable at that moment, and I'm not comfortable feeling vulnerable with other people. They have to be very close to me, and I have to be in a very safe location for me to feel okay being vulnerable. And maybe that sounds really weird, but where other people, they're like, hey, can I pray for you? Like, I've seen people ask if they can pray with you before, and you're always open to it. You're always very game. But Dave's got a very different personality in that aspect. He's very open to people wanting to care for him and be a part of his life and be involved with him in that way. And so that vulnerability thing isn't an issue for him necessarily in the same regard that it is for me. But it does make it complicated, because if you're talking to someone, hopefully you know them, but if you
don't mind us, we're just reconstructing things.
technical difficulties, if you don't, how do you know how to make that approach?
Yeah, it is tough. And the other flip side of this coin that people can fall into is the idea of, well, I'll pray for you, but then never actually do it. I noticed in my own life where I would say I pray for you, then I would get busy, I would forget about it, whatever. So whenever somebody asks me to pray for them, or I'll say I'll pray for them, I just stop what I'm doing. If it's a phone call at work or something like that, I'll stop what I'm doing and pray for them right there. So the point is, you know, evaluate your prayer life. Evaluate how much time you spend in prayer every day, and increase it.
Guys, tell us what you think down in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up if you like the topic. Share with us down below what you're thinking. We read comments. I reply to comments. And tell us what you think. Join in the conversation.
Yep.
But for now,
Share the video.
I'm Brent.
It's Dave.
This has been Faith Talk.